Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome to another vlog, a impromptu blog that I've been thinking about blogging about or vlogging about random BS for a while, and I just haven't made myself sit down and do it. So I guess in a way that's why this is impromptu, because I just got back home from going to what I thought was supposed to be a school function for my daughter. And it turned out it's next Monday, not today. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to go back home and sit down and start watching some YouTube and relaxing and enjoying the evening and all that. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to sit down and do a vlog about a couple of topics that have been on my mind, just so I can get it done and move on to whatever I want to record next. So anyway, I think it's roughly going to be 3 major topics. So we're going to go ahead and start off with this first thing, which is handheld gaming. I'm not sure how much I've talked about handheld gaming in the past, other than like when I showed, I think one of my first pickups videos was about 2DS. I had got my 2DS around that time and some games, and I've showed off some other games that I've picked up for it. That was in February. It's now September. It's been 7 months of owning a 2DS and about 10 games, roughly. And I can tell you I've played about 5 of those games. A couple of them pretty regularly. A few of them just, a little sampling. And then there's been a couple of games I've never even opened. Like unopened, untouched, never been put into my system. And I just got rid of a couple of those games today. And I'm going to be getting rid of a couple more of them tomorrow, I'm going to be trying to sell my 2DS and whatever's left by, say, this time next week. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, mainly just because I need the money, and it's the thing. It's the thing or the console that I have in my collection that is dispensable. I know how to talk. It's dispensable, and the main reason for that is, reasons I guess would be, the games that I played were fun, but with the exception of a couple of titles like Bravely Default and The Legend of Zelda: Link Between Worlds, those to me felt like console type situations or scenarios or experiences, and instead they were put on the 2DS. Now, I'm a guy who wanted a 2DS for those games that were console type situations. I was like, these are games I wish were on a console, but they're not, so I'll get a 2DS and I'll play them like that. And I was like, I don't mind if I'm sitting here playing on a little system here with a small screen, and I'm doing it, on the couch or before I go to sleep, or for a while there I was even taking it to work with me and playing it on my lunch break. But I've found that as far as work goes, I'd much rather just pop in my MP3 player and read a book. When I'm at home, I'm stuck on the computer. Excuse me, I'm stuck on the computer, on the TV, and it just seemed like my 2DS time was limited to right before I would go to bed. And since June, my 2DS time has been monopolized by Tomodachi Life, which is still a great game, but it's worn thin. It's now showed off after excuse me. It's now showed off after like 3.5 months. It's shown itself to be a really shallow overall experience. It's super fun and super entertaining for a while, but now it's just like every day I get on my game and I've got 5-6 different people who are pissed off at one another, having fights, and you got to go in there and babysit them. You got to give them something nice to make them feel better before they'll calm down and apologize. And I'm like, why? Why is it? What is this game trying to tell me? Is this game trying to say that at all times that's all that people do, is they just can't get along until you pacify them with something? Or is that just the overthinker in me that's trying to overanalyze the whole situation? It's like, I don't know. but it's tiring. And then otherwise, everybody just wants to, hey, feed me. Hey, give me some new clothes. I think somebody is really cool. Do you think I could be friends with them? Sometimes the love things will come up and I'm like, cool, another relationship. Or maybe a married couple wants to have a kid or something. Sometimes it's just like, do you think so-and-so likes me? And then I have options. Some of the options downright make you feel dumb. Sometimes the characters will like do something that they think is talented. You know, it shows off their talent. Like the game does this silly thing where they'll be like, you want to hear my impression of so-and-so? And of course the game just makes them speak in that other person's voice. So you can be like, yeah, that's great. And they'll be like, oh yeah, with this kind of talent I could rule the world. Or you could say, it wasn't so great. And they'll be like, oh, that's the meanest thing you've ever said to me. And I'm like, wow, take a shit on me, why don't you? And now I'm just to the point where I'm literally like aggravated by these little characters that I've been trying to break up married couples. I've been doing all kinds of stuff that just to see something different come out of the game. I know I'm probably letting one experience with a game where it went from really awesome to really tedious and boring kind of sour me on the whole thing, but handheld gaming is usually meant to placate a person for, 10, 15, 20 minutes. While you're on the bus going to college, while you're in the car on a trip for vacation, when you have 10 or 15 minutes before going to work or something like that, and it's too much hassle to go and log into a game on your console and go through all that when you could just, boom, hit it on this. And that's what so much of handheld gaming is about, is just short bursts, little chunks of gaming that you can jump in and out of really quick. And that's fine for some. That's great. A lot of people love it. But for me, it's not what I wanted. I wanted more of those games that were more like console experiences. And now I realize 7 months later with my 2DS that I would much rather play those games on a console with a controller and a big television and not my little tiny 2DS system. And with the 3DSs and the new 3DS systems that are coming out, at least I think they've been announced for Japan for sure. Eventually, they're going to come out over here. It's just kind of like whatever, I've only owned one other handheld in my entire life, and that was a Game Boy Advance, the original Game Boy Advance with the kind of oblong shape to it that had no backlight. That had some good games that I really enjoyed. In fact, I really debated getting a DS so that I could get Game Boy Advance games and play it on the DS. But I went with the 2DS system so I could play some of the 3DS games, some of the ones that I even bought and own, but will soon be parting with. I just if there were more console-like games on the 2DS, it might be tempting enough for me to keep it. If I could say, here's a good 20 or 30 games that are just like this, but I don't see it. I don't find enough, and a lot of games are games that I don't care about. People might say Pokemon would be a good example of that, but I've never played a Pokemon game in my life, if you don't count Pokemon Snap. I don't get the concept. I don't care enough to want to learn, and I'm just not a part of the phenomenon at this point, 15 years, 16 years later, however long it's been. But there's a lot of other games, a lot of RPGs. Bravely Default, for what little I played of it, was awesome. That deserved to be on a console. Legend of Zelda Link Between Worlds, great game. Deserved to be on a console. A console I could play. Like, if the Wii U ever had access to let you play Link Between Worlds on it somehow, that'd be another tempting part of the Wii U puzzle for me. But in the end, all I'm really trying to say is my experiment with the 2DS was fun, but it's overstayed its welcome with me, and I'm just, dispensable, wow. Expendable. That's probably the word I was trying to think of earlier. It's an expendable system for me now. It's not something I covet sitting on my shelf, my little selection of games. and it's done. Most people like handheld gaming. Most companies that make handhelds do it for those little, like a WarioWare game, which is one of the games that I had. I was going to trade this away today at Walmart since we do a trade-in program, and they wanted to give me a quarter for this. So I was like, well, screw that. I could find a friend probably who would buy it or put it on Give and Take or something like that and get a lot more than a quarter. But the rest of the money bought me some groceries today, and that's kind of where I'm at right now in my life, is needing to sell off enough stuff to just go get some groceries. So the handheld thing for me is going to be gone because it just didn't quite fulfill, like I said, the console experience on a handheld like I was hoping that it would. So anyway, enough about that. We go from one handheld thing to another. I may have mentioned my personal disdain for cell phones in the past, but I want to talk about it again because every day at work, people come in with cell phone questions and cell phone issues and buying cell phone cards and put this cell phone card on my cell phone, and it just drives me crazy. And I know I do a job and I perform customer service. I don't work in the cell phone section, but it's somewhat related to what I do. So maybe it sounds like I'm just being whiny and complaining. And I'm a guy who quite often says people are so entitled, and maybe I am being entitled or feeling entitled to not have to do it. But it just gets on my nerves. And cell phones in general get on my nerves. I think they're such a worthless technology. And I know that probably sounds just stupid, like, dude, you live in this world and you know what kind of a service they provide. And yes, I know that they do provide a good service for emergencies and whatnot. Excuse me. They're really handy. Break down out on the road, middle of the night in a strange neighborhood or something like that. At least a cell phone lets you call somebody. And I know that. That's why eventually I will probably have a cell phone again. But I plan on getting the dumbest phone, a bar phone, a flip phone with no special, internet, no smartphone capabilities. I don't care about that shit. I don't want that shit in my life anymore. I don't want some little stupid thing that you don't like you can't stop paying attention to it. I'm so pissed off when I'm driving down the road and somebody's on their phone and the light turns green, but they're looking at their phone because it's so freaking important that I text this person back or do this Snapchat or play this fucking game. It's like, no, it's not that important. They're so stupid. I don't rue the fact that cell phones exist, but the smartphones and the phones that let you do so much, maybe I do rue the day that happened. People are so connected to their stupid phones. And it's just, I'm a guy who, I deal with the social anxiety disorder and depression and overthinking and being affected too much and being too sensitive about every little thing that's going on around me. But even I realize that sometimes you got to be out there in the world around people, connecting with them face to face. And the cell phones have seemed to become a good excuse for people who don't deal with the shit that I deal with to become reclusive hermits who never talk to anybody directly. They're always texting or calling or Facebooking or whatever, all the other wonderful apps that they have. Let's put this on Instagram. Let's put this on Tumblr. And this goes to Twitter and that goes to Facebook. And this is a Snapchat and this is a this and that and just whatever. It's so dumb. I know I'm sounding old and like a fuddy-duddy. I'm going to be 40 here in less than 2 months. But I've also grown up, like, from my teenage years on, pretty much, with technology, with computers and cameras and cell phones and game consoles, like, cool game consoles. That's kind of harsh. From Super Nintendo on, I think pretty much all consoles have been pretty cool. But I've grown up with a lot of this technology. These kids now on their cell phones and whatnot, they don't know what dial-up internet was about. They don't know what BBS systems were about. They don't know what, they don't even know what things like Yahoo Chat was all about, which is probably for the best, but they just know these little cell phones and they're so connected to them. And my daughter is going to be in that world before I know it, and it scares me. Like, I don't ever want to think of her as being one of those people who couldn't stop messing with her phone instead of driving and paying attention to what she's doing. So it's a lot of anxiety in this, but it's also just a lot of personal, like, I could totally do without cell phones in general. And then from the retailer perspective of it, there are cheap cell phones. There is a company with certain plans and whatnot that I will probably end up on in the next several months whenever I have the money to get back into it, that I will do. But even then, none of these cell phone companies are truly as cheap as you think that they are, because if you're not a person who uses a lot of time, you still have to buy time every so often. And then if you're a person who just thinks, oh, this is cheap, I'm paying $10 for a phone and $20 for an hour's worth of talk time that gets doubled by the phone company, unofficial plug for track phone, I guess. But if they sit down and have a couple of decent conversations, 45 minutes to an hour, boom, your time's gone. Your card lasts for 90 days, but your time is only the time that's on there. It's just such a gimmick. All of it is, whether it's contract or prepaid or not, it's all just a big gimmick. So I'm soured on it, and I'm just kind of pissy about cell phone stuff these days. And in about a week, it's the first of the month, and so it's going to be crazy at my store with people wanting to buy their time again because they get their money and whatnot. So I'm the face of a person who's somewhat tech savvy, who likes a lot of wonderful tech, couldn't live without his internet, loves his gaming, his consoles, loves his high-definition television and his Blu-ray movies, and yet hates the fuck out of cell phones so much. Just so much. Every time I see somebody with their head in a cell phone, it makes me so mad. Well, the last thing I wanted to talk about, it's strange because now I've kind of lost my desire to get into it. Not like, oh, well, it's so straining and stressful to talk about this. It's not. It's just I wanted to talk a little bit more about, some thoughts about the anxiety issues and depression and whatnot. And it's not really, whatever it was I wanted to talk about has kind of disappeared. So instead of making this any longer than it is, I'll just say I'm done. Thanks for watching. If you agree with any of my thoughts on the handhelds or cell phones and all that kind of stuff, or if you disagree, post, comment down below, whatever. I guess that's it. I'm done for now. See you next time.